5 things learned from Igor Tudor's first press conference as Juventus coach. It took place today in Turin at the Allianz Stadium, and the new Croatian tactician had replaced, as you know, Thiago Motta, and he spoke to reporters alongside director Cristiano Giuntoli. Giuntoli briefly spoke and briefly introduced Tudor, explaining the Juventus decisions, insisting that he has a good relationship with Thiago Motta and that he's sorry that things didn't eventually work out for him at Juventus, and confirmed that Tudor would stay at the Allianz Stadium until the club's World Cup. So Igor Tudor will be the Juventus coach for the club's World Cup, and after that Juventus will sit down again with Tudor and discuss the future. Now, Gazzetta previously reported that Juventus have an option to practically terminate the agreement with Tudor within July 30. We know that the club's World Cup goes from mid-June to mid-July, and Igor Tudor will then take charge of this tournament for Juventus, and then Juve will decide. Giuntoli said, "We hope we can continue together because we feel Tudor is an ideal coach for this sort of team." But what did Tudor talk about? Of course, there were questions about his future, on whether having a short-term contract would affect his motivation and the team's motivation on the long run. And he said, of course, I'd love to have a 10-year contract and stay here for 10 years because it's Juventus, it's a top club, and it's a club that means a lot to me. But at the same time, it makes no difference, because I need to work day by day. I need to help this team get out of a difficult situation. So what I need to work on is daily work. Just focus on what I do every day, focus on the players each day, and work trying to get the results and eventually reach the target that we know which is. It doesn't say we aim to finish in the top 4 like that. You just said we know what our target is. So of course it's top 4 finish, because Serie A title, it's way too far of a stretch, too much of a stretch for the old lady. They're 1 point below Bologna, who are 4th currently, and Juventus will meet Bologna away in the final 9 games of the season, as well as Roma and Lazio away. Of course, a lot of difficult games for the Bianconeri, but Tudor seemed very much motivated, and he, talking about motivation, he really almost put motivation and mental strength and mental qualities over the player's technical ability and his tactical decisions as well. He said, we got an important team. There are good players. He replied to a question about Yildiz and Cup Miners on where they could play, and he said good players always find the role, because if they are good players, they will always find a way, a place for them in the starting 11. And but most importantly, another important thing from the Tudor press conference is that he talked about the humility of some Juventus legends like Del Piero and Zidane. He spoke about their sense of belonging, how are they worked alongside him as footballers at the club. And so he wants to see this sort of commitment. He wants to see these players, these Juventus players, try to imitate these big Juventus legends who never gave up, who always fought hard for the team. And so first thing, he really wants to see a strong sense of belonging, and want to see a team that fights on every ball, never gives up, especially in a period when we know the team lacked reaction in the last 2 games under Motta against Atalanta and Fiorentina. He didn't want to talk about Thiago Motta, Tudor, not because he doesn't like Motta, of course, but because he said, I'm not here to do any comparison. What I need to focus on is my work. So what I'll do is, again, just focus on my work. And there were a couple of questions where Motta was asked about the team's lack of reaction, especially in the last games under Motta, the struggles from set pieces, both in attack and in defense. And Tudor didn't really reply to these questions mentioning Motta. I think he was very respectful because he didn't want to comment on the colleague's job, on somebody who has been sacked by the club, and he just said, we know how important set pieces are and we're going to work on them, but of course it's not a comparison that I can make in the past because I wasn't working here, so I do not know what happened behind the scenes and why certain things didn't work in here. Another important aspect from the Tudor press conference is the captain. There had been already suggestions that Locatelli would have been chosen by Tudor after Thiago Motta, and this was confirmed by the coach. He briefly spoke about the Juventus leaders, but to be fair, he couldn't say much Thiago Motta because he's been working with the team just for a couple of days, and actually only yesterday, Wednesday, was a day where he could work almost with the entire squad. So he said, I still need time to identify the leaders, but I can see he already confirmed that Locatelli would remain the captain, like in the second part of the season. Locatelli already got the armband from Motta when Danilo left the team in the January transfer window. Another crucial thing, I think, in the Motta press conference is one of the first questions, which is Dusan Vlahovic. I want to show you the Tudor quotes on Vlahovic from the Football Italia website, which got all the quotes from Igor Tudor's first press conference. Should be able to see the screen in here. So there we go. Vlahovic, Locatelli. Now, you know, Vlahovic, it's something I mentioned in the previous videos as well. Vlahovic was already praised by Igor Tudor a couple of years ago when Tudor was in charge of Verona, and he said Osimhen is not the best. He was asked about Osimhen on whether he was the best striker in Serie A, and he said, no, I think Vlahovic is a better player. And he continued naturally praising Dusan Vlahovic, and spoke about a nice gesture because Vlahovic returned from international duty ahead of schedule, 1 day in advance, to start working with under Tudor and try to hit the ground running and help the Bianconeri, hopefully for them, get a top 4 finish. He's a very strong player, continued Tudor, and I'm happy to coach him. I've already spoken about him in the past, which is what I mentioned to you, and these are facts, not just word. He's a player who has all the skills that a top-class player needs to have. He knows how to score, he understands, he's intelligent, and he's a motivator. Now, it's clear that Tudor has a lot of expectations on Dusan Vlahovic, who's still the best Juventus scorer this season, despite not getting much playing time in 2025 in the second part of the campaign. But he's still the best Juventus scorer, and we surely expect him to see him start against Genoa on Igor Tudor debut on Saturday. One last thing about the Juventus system. Tudor didn't entirely clarify whether he would play with a 3-man defense or with a 4-man defense, but he said that Juventus will need everything. Will need to attack well, to defend well. All the media pretty much expect Juventus to line up with a 3-man defense in the first game under Tudor because it's the system that Tudor has been using most frequently during his coaching career. At the same time, he said, I also played with the 4-man defense sometimes, so he didn't entirely clarify which system he's going to use, but he said that the principles that he wants to see are very clear. He wants to see a team that fights. He wants to see a team that is humble, that respects the opponents, and that, first of all, puts these classic skill sets that everyone sees in the Juventus DNA on the pitch. And then the rest, especially technically and tactically, will come for sure. Conte said, we are at Juventus, so we need to learn very quickly and we need to improve very quickly, because it doesn't matter if you are young or if you're old here. What it takes is just win. when you are at Juventus. So the debut is on Saturday, March 29 at the Allianz Stadium. It's a game I'll be covering over the weekend, so get in touch and subscribe to the channel, because there will be more analysis on Juventus and Igor Tudor after his opening game as the Juventus coach this coming Saturday. This was all I had on his first press conference as Juventus coach. Keep in touch, again, subscribe to the channel and get in touch and get all the latest updates and analysis on Italian football and Serie A. Ciao!